Okay.
Now you spoke about fallen consciousness, um, which brings me to the devil.
Yes. Yeah.
um, because there's so many people that, um, it's like, don't let the devil tempt you. Don't let the devil up in here. Um, things like that. There's some outside source of evil messing with people's lives. So
Mm.
can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's again a paradoxical thing. Within this reality, is there evil? Yes, absolutely. And anyone who says there isn't hasn't experienced it directly. People who have experienced it very directly can tell you there is no question. There is a whole bunch of stuff going on here. You have to remember that it's not just our physical reality that we experience here. We're experiencing the reality of the four lower bodies. And so a lot of what we would term kind of evil energies around the planet are happening in the astral realm, which is outside of kind of your immediate five senses, but it's very real here within the reality that you're living. So is it true that, I mean, as far as pointing to one individual, I suppose there probably is. I know a certain teacher who, from a more Eastern tradition, would term that the call power, that the call power would be what we would think of as Satan or the devil from a Western perspective. But that the call power is truly only there to hold the balance here, because this world is about polarity. And in order for polarity to maintain itself, it has to stay balanced. So the purpose of the call power would be to make sure that everything's balanced. That's the whole thing that keeps reincarnation running, right? You identify with your actions and deeds and beliefs here in this lifetime, and then any place that is not balanced, meaning that you can't come to the middle path, kind of use a Buddhist term, if you can't see it from a neutral perspective, then in your next cycle of reincarnation, you'll come back on the opposite side to live out the opposite side, to give you hopefully give you the ability to see through the whole story. Well, of course, because of the way the system's programmed, you fall into forgetfulness again every time you're reincarnated. So then you don't remember that you just lived out the opposite side of that your last lifetime, and now you live this side. So you repolarize to this side, and then now you're just doing this back and forth thing. So within that, is it true? Sure. In my work, I have a spiritual protection that I give to all my students, and I'm very, very serious with them when I ask them to use that every day, morning and night, and anywhere in between where they feel like they need it. At a certain point, is it necessary? No, but the student needs it until they would have the very strong understanding that they didn't. And even at that point, to get to a place where you recognize you don't need it, you wouldn't have any attachment to using it or not using it anyway. So you would just continue to use it. Because the reality is, here in this paradigm, there is stuff going on. There are entities looking to attach themselves to people who are open to, having energy kind of pulled from them, and just different things that go on. That's not part of my personal work, but I do have an awareness of what's going on. Yes. Outside of it, is it true? No. Oh gosh, no, not at all. Absolutely not at all. Like I said, outside of polarized consciousness, there is no boogeyman. There is no bad guy. There is no evil. There is nothing that in this life you would term negative. Does not exist. Does not exist. So it's strictly a construct of mind. If mind in this lower out picturing can conceptualize God, right, then by rights it has to conceptualize the opposite of God. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that this out picturing is the opposite of God. So you're actually living it right now. And it's very funny, because when I was a kid, I remember being a kid and actually having the awareness that this was hell, that if there was a hell, it has to be here. Because none of this makes any sense. I could, as a child, just look and see the pain in the world, and look and see how people hurt each other and do such destructive things to ourselves and the planet and animals and everything. And it just made no sense to me. And so from a very young age, like, I just got that. If there is a hell, it's right here. And if there is a devil, it's your own mind, right? Because it's only the mind that believes the stories that are holding this reality in place.
Mm-hmm.
So from that perspective, that's the only place that evil exists, right? And the concept of sin being not that you've done something wrong, but that you believed something that wasn't true, right? When you sinned, when you missed the mark, so to speak, it was you identifying as something other than the totality of the eternal, right? Because that's what you are. And you've made yourself small, and you've believed yourself to be something other than, or cut off from, what you are eternally. And that's where you sinned. That's where you missed the mark. So is it true that humanity sinned? Yes, from that space, right? But now we take the lower mind, who turns that into this sin thing, is this negative thing, right? And then we have to do good deeds to get back to the positive thing. And now we're stuck in this whole kind of mouse wheel of, this journey that we'll never get off of, because we're constantly bouncing back and forth between one side and the other side, never finding peace ever. So I've completely lost your question at this point. It's not unusual.
We talk about the devil and evil.
Evil, and yeah. So yeah, that's just how I view it. Of course, there are entities who are, and I have to say it from this space too, it's all done in pure innocence, all of it. That's a very challenging thing for people when I say that. But the fact is that you're only the personality you are because you were taught to be that way, right? And then you have, as an adult, let's say, tweaked that because of more life experience you've had, and maybe you've tweaked certain things because you were in repulsion to the way you were raised. And then for others, they remained the way they were because they're comfortable with the way they were raised. But whatever it is, it's innocent enough. Your parents taught you to be a certain way, so that's how you are. They taught you to believe a certain way, so that's what you believe, right? As an adult, you have an opportunity to grow and stretch and evolve. But as a child, you pick that up very innocently. Why is it that you speak the language you speak? Because it was taught to you. Are you wrong for being subjected to the language that was taught to you? Well, of course not. Who would say that, you're wrong for that? Right? Mm-hmm. Of course not. It's very innocent. Yeah. And that's where everyone on the planet is functioning from. They're just a product of their conditioning. And you can't blame a person for their conditioning. That doesn't mean that we condone actions that are malevolent or anything. It doesn't mean that at all. But what I'm saying is the foundation of it is very innocent, right? And so part of the journey for the seeker, as they go deeper and deeper and their own sense of the personal self starts to unravel, they start to see the innocence everywhere, right? And you start to see God everywhere. And when I see God in you, this person doing evil deeds, how do I choose to see you? Do I see you as the deeds, or do I see you as that which you are, which is God? Now, again, that seems paradoxical, because you could say, well, but it's God, but it's doing terrible things. Sure. What sits behind it is God. So because of my point of focus, that's who I see, right? I can see the deeds. We can work with the deeds. We can work to show you that that's unacceptable, that, doesn't serve any purpose here, that it's, it's being harmful and you're karmically binding yourself. We can do all kinds of work around that. But I won't judge you based on the deeds. When the deeds are done out of the space of something that was learned in innocence, I can't judge you based on that, because you're God and you are perfect and whole always, right? That is, a much deeper or much more expanded state of consciousness to function from. But that's where humanity is heading. Absolutely.